Welcome to Renegade Conversations. This is Season 4, Episode 20. My next guest is an artist, an anti-capitalist business consultant, and social justice educator. I'm really excited to meet them and learn more about being an anti-capitalist business consultant. My name is Meryl Cook. I'm an artist, a renegade, and host and creator of Renegade Conversations. My mission is to provide thought-provoking, fearless, and fun discussions with remarkable female rebels who are shaking things up in their respective fields. My hope is to make you question the norms and ignite your own renegade spirit. This episode of Renegade Conversations is sponsored by Mary Jane Copps. Mary Jane has been writing her own paycheck since 1985. First as a freelance real estate journalist, and then launching a tech startup in 1987. Mary Jane embraced her alter ego, the Phone Lady, in 2006. She works with clients throughout North America and in Australia, England, and France, giving them the skill to inspire valuable conversations with clients, customers, and prospects. Mary Jane has been profiled as a communications expert by Australian Broadcasting, Fox and Friends, Harry Enton's CNN podcast Margins of Error, as well as by the Wall Street Journal, National Post, the Globe and Mail, CBC, CTV, Global, as well as other publications, television, and radio outlets, including, and this is my personal favorite, a very silly skit on This Hour Has 22 Minutes. She is also the author of the phone book, Essential Telephone Communication Skills, and writes a bi-weekly blog on sales and customer service communication skills. My next guest is Hebert. Hebert, they, them, is an artist, anti-capitalist business consultant, and social justice educator. They spent most of their life in South Louisiana, and for the past 2 years, they've called Brooklyn home. Bear has been self-employed since 2014, and now they help fellow tiny business owners build thriving livelihoods while sidestepping the traps of capitalism. Welcome, Bear. My friend Anita Kirkbride, who's an anti-hero social media consultant, suggested I reach out to you for your fresh approach, in particular your ideas about anti-capitalism. I'm really excited to hear about that. And the other thing that really drew me to you is when we exchange emails, when I love receiving your automated response, which says, "Hello, friend. I'm perpetually slow at email, and honestly, I'm not trying to get any faster. It's true that I appreciate your message so much. It's also true that my reply may take days, weeks, or months. Thanks for your patience." And I just I just love that. So thanks so much for agreeing to hop on Zoom to have this conversation with me.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, I always love to get to connect with new folks. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here.
Thanks. So from your bio, where you describe yourself as an artist, an anti-capitalist business consultant, and a social justice educator, it's pretty clear that you are a renegade. But have you always been a renegade?
I would say maybe I had a renegade heart, but I definitely did not grow up. I grew up in the Deep South in the US, in a pretty conservative town, and with family that is pretty conservative in terms of their political beliefs, and definitely did not have this kind of, I know people who, grew up going to protests with their parents and, kind of more childhood. And that was definitely not my experience. But, I sort of I came out as queer as a late teen and got involved in feminist activism, as soon as I got to college. And I feel like for as long as I've been an adult, I have been sort of aligned this way politically and have just continued to get more radicalized over the course of my life. 9/11 happened when I was a senior in high school, and that was kind of a big political awakening moment for me to sort of like look at the way the global politics were, functioning. And then I lived in New Orleans. I'm from Louisiana, and I lived in New Orleans for 17 years. And Hurricane Katrina happened when I was 21, and so that was also like another big moment of like political consciousness raising, where it was like, oh my God, like suddenly I can really see what, how race and class and government and power are kind of functioning or failing to function in that case. But yeah, so those were my two sort of like early politicizing moments. And then basically so now I'm 40. And so since I was, 20, I've been sort of on this path of being a renegade, as you have said.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And tell me, what impact has being a renegade had on your life and your business? For example, what opportunities and what challenges has it presented?
Yeah, I think it's I would say in terms of opportunities, the thing that it's really done is given me a purpose beyond my own kind of well-being. Being sort of politically active and not in the sort of, I mean, certainly also somewhat in the kind of like electoral politics realm, but which is like, very top of mind at this moment.
It sure is.
But, in the being, sort of more involved in community organizing efforts and, just social justice causes in general has given me a lot of purpose beyond just my own ideas or my own individual success. And I think that's been really profound for me to say, like, the point of my life is not just for me to be, for me to feel good or for me to feel okay. But that the purpose of my life and the time that I have here on this planet, however brief it may be, is to try to work for the good of all people. And that has been, I would say, I don't know if that's an opportunity exactly, but I guess it's an opportunity for like depth of meaning in my life.
Which adds to a well-being, right? When you have a good sense of purpose, when you have a sense of that your life has a wider impact, then there is this enhanced sense of purpose, which is pretty wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, challenges certainly, I think always of Gabor Mate's work about authenticity and belonging, and to be my authentic self and to say, like, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for, this is who I am. To stand in my own authenticity and to insist upon my right to that, I think sometimes has the cost of, the fact that then there are some spaces in which that makes me not able to belong. Certainly it's, my political beliefs have been a source of friction and conflict with my family of origin, because they have different ideas about how things are. And, so there are certainly like relational costs at times. And I think early on in my business, there were some like monetary costs because I couldn't quite wrap my brain around how to be in alignment with my own political values and be able to make enough money.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, that's like maybe a more tangible, practical cost of being committed to these values.
Yeah. And so I think the anti-capitalist stand that you've taken in your business and in your coaching fits really well here. So how has that been? Tell us a bit about what it is, but also how has that been launching a business like this, which is so different than what most people are talking about right now?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I love any opportunity to get nerdy about capitalism and anti-capitalism. So, for me, the way that I look at it is that capitalism is a system that is rooted in a sort of relentless, never-ending pursuit for more. Inside of capitalism, there's never there's never like an arriving at enough, like, oh, we've got
Mm-hmm.
enough money, we can stop, whatever.
Yeah.
And because of that relentless pursuit for more, there then has to be, exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
that is, it becomes like exploitation is sort of a necessary feature of this
Mm-hmm.
relentless pursuit for more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I knew that I didn't want to exploit my customers or my clients, and I didn't want to exploit myself as I
Mm-hmm.
was, moving into self-employment. And uh, so it's been really, this sort of push and pull of like, how do I make enough money but also not exploit myself? How do I make enough money but also not exploit my customers?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, now I feel like my approach to anti-capitalism is really rooted in two things. One, separating out like commerce from capitalism, which I think is a place that many people get confused, where they feel
Mm-hmm.
like selling things is capitalism, and it's
Uh-huh.
actually not, right? Like,
Yeah.
human beings have been buying and selling things from each other for way longer than capitalism has
Yes.
existed.
Yep.
And in the history of humanity, capitalism is like a relatively new feature.
Mm-hmm.
And so, really untangling those two things from each other, and giving myself permission, and then, in turn, attempting to give my clients permission that like it's okay to sell stuff and it's okay
Mm-hmm.
for people to buy from you. There's not anything
Mm-hmm.
inherently wrong or bad or exploitative about the act of buying and selling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, has been like extremely freeing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other part of like what an anti-capitalist approach to business has looked like for me is really about um, sort of including myself in the vision of liberation that I have for all people. Not that it's like, oh, my vision, right? But like when I think of collective liberation, I think so often people tend to not include themselves in that vision. And it's like, oh, I have to sacrifice myself in order for the good of others. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, to me, an anti-capitalist approach says, I too get to be part of this vision, and
Mm-hmm.
I too get to be, um, you know, included in my pursuits. And so it's okay for me to make enough money. It's okay for me to be well.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for me to be, taken care of through
Mm-hmm.
the work that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that, again, there's nothing sort of inherently exploitative or negative about allowing myself to get paid enough, allowing
Mm-hmm.
myself to have time off, allowing myself
Mm-hmm.
to,
Yeah. Yeah.
do any of the things that I need to do. So yeah,
Cool.
those are some like bullet points on how
Yeah.
I'm approach anti-capitalism.
And so when you initially brought this out or started to launch this, was that difficult for you, or did people sort of go, oh, aha, yes, we want this? Like what was it like for you?
Yeah, I think some of both. I my like initial forays into self-employment, I definitely was sort of I think there's sort of, I see like two kind of types of clients that I end up with, and I think that I'm in like one of the groups, but not the other. So like one group is people who have built successful or semi-successful businesses
Mm-hmm.
following more kind of like capitalist ideology. So they're
Mm-hmm.
they're following traditional marketing ideas, they're following traditional pricing models or whatever, and they
Mm-hmm.
found some success inside of that. And then they have like a moment of, you know, spiritual or political awakening, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, like, I don't actually want to, if this is what success looks like, I don't want that, right? And then
Uh-huh.
they have to sort of retrofit the business
Uh-huh.
with anti-capitalist
Yeah.
ideas. And then the other end is like people, and I think this was me for a long time, that like their values are at the forefront. Maybe they were politicized before they started being self-employed or before
Mm-hmm.
they started their businesses,
Mm-hmm.
and the values get in the way of their ability to have a successful business, right?
Uh-huh.
Because they've done the things that I described a minute ago of like conflating commerce and capitalism and not including themselves in their vision for success. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
um,
Interesting.
so then there's sort of the retrofit has to go, for me it had to go in the other direction, where it wasn't so much like, oh, I have these I have a successful business, but now I have these values. It was like, oh, I have a struggling business,
Yeah.
but I have these values. And so then the transformation for me was not around the values, but around the business, and to go, oh, now I have a thriving business and I'm still in alignment with my own values.
Nice. Yeah,
So,
I love the distinction you make between commerce and capitalism. I think that's a really important one. That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
yeah.
simple, but I find that can be quite liberating for people to really give themselves permission that like it's
Mm,
okay to sell your art or your services or whatever
mm,
it is, that it's there's nothing inherently wrong with the buying and selling
mm,
of
mm.
our stuff or our
Yeah,
services. Um,
cool, cool.
yeah.
I'm thinking about so I launched a clothing line in the spring that is basically manufactured in Montreal. And then I send photos of my work that we then put on clothing, right? And so it was really important to me to make sure that things were locally produced
Mhm.
and that the materials were as environmentally friendly as they could be. They're not natural materials, but they are made in Canada and they are printed one at a time, so there's no waste. So to me, that's really important. And I think that's kind of an anti-capitalist view, right? Because I could very easily have my stuff made overseas at a sweatshop and at a much lower price. But yeah, to me, it was
Yeah.
just important to have things that were made in sort of the slow fashion way. And yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
I love
Cool.
that. I think that's absolutely
Yeah.
anti-capitalist to say
Yeah.
that to say that you're prioritizing anything else besides the endless pursuit of profit, I think is sort of
Right.
capitalist in its nature. So
Yeah.
yeah, good for
Cool.
you. Yeah, and your
Great.
clothes.
Well, oh, thanks. So tell me, actually, we're going to take a short break now for a message from my sponsor, who is a person who's very aligned with your values, which I just love. And when we come back, I'm going to have some fun questions for you.
Hi, fellow renegades. I'm Mary Jane Cops, otherwise known as the Phone Lady, and I'm delighted to be sponsoring Meryl's Renegade Conversations because I'm all about the conversations. I work with clients throughout North America, in England, France, and Australia, working with teams and individuals to help them inspire amazing conversations with their prospects, their clients, their customers, even their family and friends. Want to learn more? Head over to my website, thephonelady.com. And we can also connect on LinkedIn. I'm the only Mary Jane Cops on LinkedIn. I look forward to meeting you. Now let's get back to Meryl and her guest.
Okay, so welcome back. And Bear, did you bring a drink to share?
I did bring a drink to share. Should I show the people?
Sure, tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is seltzer with lilac syrup, and I made the lilac syrup this spring. Um, so my partner works for a florist, and so we would get these like beautiful, farm-grown blooms that were surplus from whatever gig, had needed them. And yeah, so after some particular gig, we had just a kitchen full of lilacs, and so
Oh, nice.
you can make syrup out of any flower that's edible. And so for this, you just pick the flowers off the bunches and soak them in hot water, and then add that hot water that's then infused with the lilac essence to sugar, and then it becomes a sort of it's not shelf stable forever, but it's shelf stable for 6 months, 12 months, something
Yeah.
like
Oh,
that. And
wow.
it has the like gentlest, most delicate kind of floral flavor, and then it's really nice in a seltzer or in a tea. And I feel like it just really like transports me back to springtime when everything is blooming.
Nice.
So yeah.
So by seltzer, do you mean a soda water?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Sodas,
okay.
like club
Different
soda or whatever.
terminology. Yeah. Cool, cool. Oh, that sounds delicious and nice. That's lovely.
Yeah.
I do that with my rose petals when they're not being eaten by Japanese beetles. This year I didn't get very many rose petals. But
Yeah, yeah.
anyway.
Any of those flowers that are edible, you can do that with, which is
Oh,
so
that's
cool.
lovely. Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice, nice. And in grade two, what kind of a kid were you? Describe yourself in grade two.
Yeah. I love this question. I was pretty interested in reading and writing and art. I changed schools mid-year in grade 2, and so my teacher at the second school that I went to really sort of like took me under her wing as the new kid. And I have some really sweet memories of like sitting against her desk with my book when I had like finished my work early, you know, because because like what we had done in my previous school was like a little ahead of what they were doing in the current school. So it's like, okay, I can breeze through this coursework, and then she would let me tuck up against her desk and read a you know, fiction book or whatever in between lessons. So yeah, cozy, lots of books. Yeah.
And were you shy? Were you outgoing? Were you too obedient, or you know, what kind of kid were you?
Yeah, I think some of both in terms of shy or outgoing. Like I was definitely not like social butterfly, but I had some good friends. I had, you know, a few close friends that were like, these are my buds, these are my people.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, when we, you know, I was really into plants and trees. We had, because when we moved, and I had to change schools, we moved into a house that had a big oak tree in the front yard, and there were big ones in the backyard that were taller, that had like taller, narrower trunks, but the one in the front yard had a big, wide trunk that you could climb up into pretty easily, even as a little kid. And so that's the other thing I remember from that era, is like hoisting myself up into that tree with a book, and then just sitting in the tree, you know, in the kind of nook of the branches, and
that's wonderful,
and reading books in that tree. So
yeah. Nice. That sounds really nice. Cool. And this is my funny question about drawing yourself. So it's a question that I often ask, and it's is there a line or a shape that would define you? And if so, what would that look like?
Yeah. I think I would be some kind of like series of diagonals, little, you know, short with a rounded end kind of diagonal shape, you know, the line that then kind of, you know, meanders off the page.
And why diagonal? What's the diagonal about, do you think?
I don't know, just like always leaning towards, always trying to, you know, continue moving forward, not letting myself get too stuck.
Yeah. And the rounded edge, what's that correspond to, do you think?
I think just like trying not to become too calcified in my ideas, not being invested in dogma, trying to keep a softness of mind and heart, even in, you know, maintaining a kind of commitment to my own like rigorousness and my own you know, commitments.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I love the idea of sort of lines that are kind of leaning and moving in one direction, and they represent this kindness of mind and heart, or this softness of mind and heart. That's a beautiful image. Very nice.
Yeah, that's a fun question.
Yeah, it is a fun question. I get so many really interesting answers, and they're all different, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Right? So, what advice do you have for people who want to access more of their inner wild or renegade selves? Like how would they get started, or what's the most important thing?
Yeah, I sort of think it's been twofold for me, that I've really needed both my own kind of self-acceptance and also a few external relationships that were really accepting of me in order to feel like I can be my kind of whole self, my most renegade self, my, you know, weirdest, wildest, you know, self. And it feels like those two things kind of really feed into each other in like a little infinity loop, you know, of like I have to you know, I have to love myself, I have to accept myself, and then I'm open to other people really like receiving other people's like love and acceptance of me and really believing it. Because I think without the one or the other, it's really without the love of self, I feel like I can't get anywhere, and without the like love and acceptance of others, it's really lonely. And so I need both. And yeah, I guess my encouragement for people is just to keep working on that softening towards your own truth, and then try to find people that also are in alignment with like you being who you really are, and what you really believe.
Those are lovely, both. And I agree. They're both things that have to be there in order to feel confident to get out into the world and fight for what you believe in, or take a stand on things that, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Nice. I keep thinking of when people describe, especially the way you've described this sort of softness, I keep thinking of rug designs and different designs, because they're really beautiful images.
Yeah, that's nice.
Who is your favorite renegade?
Yeah, I have so many people that I feel like I could point to in my life and in the past, in terms of like writers and scholars and thinkers. And the person who came to mind to answer this question is Alexis Pauline Gumbs, who is a writer who's alive today. And she just published a book about Audre Lorde, who's a Black feminist writer and thinker, and a sort of a person. Audre Lorde's work has really positively influenced me, and like changed a lot about the way that I think about the world and see the world. And so Alexis Pauline Gumbs doing this book that's about Audre Lorde feels like a real beautiful kind of historical document that's also sort of a guide for a guide for the future. And Alexis has this kind of person in the middle. And I don't know her personally. I only know her work. She's written a number of books. And just her writing has been really powerful and influential to me. So that's why I wanted to name her here.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. We'll definitely put a link to both her and the book in our show notes. So that's great. And Bear, do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I wanted to know sort of what have been some of your most interesting takeaways from these conversations that you've had with people? Like, what are the things that people have shared with you that have really stuck with you?
That's a really good question. I'm just now on episode 20, I think. So I'm sort of scanning back quickly. But I think one of the things that I think is in common with many of the people that I've interviewed is that the whole idea of finding your tribe and finding people who support you and think like you seems to be a very consistent theme, which is really lovely. And I think the other thing that I've really learned is that renegadeness comes in all kinds of approaches. So you have the people who are kind of loud and, scream it from the rooftops, kind of a renegade. And then you have these people who are kind of working quietly, but doing some very, very cool renegade things, which I love. And I guess the other thing that has really stood out for me is how much I'm enjoying it and how much I'm really loving connecting with people like yourself. It's just been, I guess, like building a tribe a little bit of other people who think off the beaten path or behave off the beaten path, or whatever. It's been really great. And and just the other thing that has struck me is the generosity of many of my guests. So I've received many lovely referrals of other renegades from renegades that I've had conversations with. So it's just been like this drop in a pond, and kind of moving out into the pond of people that I probably would never have known to contact or never have found just through my traditional means of looking on LinkedIn and looking on other media. So it's been really wonderful. It's been such a great process. I've been really enjoying it. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention that we haven't talked about yet? You haven't told us about your art. What is your art like? And your social justice work. What are you doing in that area?
Yeah. I studied photography in college and I still do a little bit of that as, I'm not doing anything artistically that is like my career. My career is, doing business consulting, but and business, coaching. But I'm a writer. I am a costume designer. I work in theater, doing costume and prop kind of design for collaborative projects. And that's been really beautiful and fulfilling as a creative outlet alongside the work that I'm doing. And then my social justice projects I feel like are also kind of like intersecting with my art practice and with my work as a consultant, because a lot of the theater projects that I've been part of have been sort of have a social justice orientation or social justice motivation. So that's been a real kind of fun way to like marry those things to each other. And I have, I feel like all my anti-capitalist business consulting is a sort of form of activism or social justice work. And I've been on hiatus a little bit with this side project, but for a long time I have been teaching undoing patriarchy classes for men and people who benefit from patriarchy, and so that's been a kind of fun and tiring, if I'm honest, side project.
You have to really hold your energy to get into that space, right?
But if people are interested in that, it's at undoingpatriarchy.com. So that is a project that I hope to bring out of retirement this next year. So
awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're involved in so many great things. It's been such a pleasure to meet you. And I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to have this conversation. It's been an absolute delight to meet you.
Likewise. Thanks so much for having me. Really great to get to connect.
I hope hearing how Bear has found a way to stay true to their values while running a successful but non-capitalist business has inspired you to embrace more of your renegade self. If you need a little help getting started, please reach out to me. This episode was sponsored by Mary Jane Copps. Be sure to subscribe to Renegade Conversations. It's available on my YouTube channel at Meryl Cook Artist as a video, or if you'd prefer to listen to the audio version, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Look for Renegade Conversations. Thanks so much for listening and sharing this episode.